Hi guys, how are you doing? Welcome back, and welcome back to my VMware VCF series. In the previous videos, I showed you how to set up that ESXi host, but also I showed you how to set up that networking part before you can actually start VCF installation. In this video, I will show you what DNS records you need for the forward and the reverse lookups, because you know what we're saying about DNS. If it's broken, it's probably DNS, and in this case, if the DNS is not set up correctly, your VCF installation will fail. Let's get into it. This is my pfSense firewall. I'm using pfSense in my lab environment, as you can see here, and also as you saw in my previous video. These are the networks you need to have in place for VCF. Of course, every network in this case, not the WAN or the LAN, but every other network, it's a VLAN. I already showed you how to do this. Check my previous video out if you want to know how to set up and prepare your network and VLANs for VCF. In this part, we're going to focus on setting up the DNS. Now, of course, I have several hosts. This is one of the hosts I'm going to use. This is my ESXi 01.vcache.vcf. If I go back to the host, you can see the name. So this host need to have a proper DNS record in my DNS servers. That means a forward lookup should work fine, but a reverse lookup should give the actual DNS host name of this ESXi host. And the same goes for several other components which are being deployed during that VCF install. Now, if I go to my firewall and I go to my DHCP server, you will see that in my VCF ESXi management VLAN in that network, that's the network my ESXi servers are sitting in from a management perspective. So that management network is configured on my ESXi server. Let's go quickly back to that ESXi server and let's check out the networking configuration. This is the networking setup of this ESXi server. This is one of the ESXi servers. And if I click on that virtual switch, you can see that from a management perspective, this server is living in that VLAN ID 1610. It has a IP address in that VLAN. Now, this is that VLAN here on my pfSense firewall. Now, this VLAN, I have made some reservations here for DNS entries for all of my ESXi hosts. So if I scroll down, you can see that all my ESXi hosts, which in my case, there are 4 ESXi hosts I will use for deploying VCF, they have a DNS entry because I made a static entry in the DNS server. In pfSense, if you create a static entry in the DNS server and you have options enabled in the DNS resolver to register those static reservations in the DNS server of pfSense, well, these will then answer for forwards and reverse lookups for these records. And we can check that quickly, of course, if we just do a ping to my DNS name. This is the ESXi 01.vcache.vcf. You can see it's actually resolving it to that IP address, which is set up here in the DHCP server as a static mapping. But also if I do a ping -a for the IP address, it will give me the actual DNS record, which is registered in the DNS resolver. Now, if you're using pfSense like I am, and you need to automatically register those static entries or even dynamic entries in the unbound resolver on pfSense, you need to make sure that that option is actually enabled. So go to the services and the DNS resolver. And if you scroll down to the bottom, you will see that there are 2 options here for DHCP registrations, one for dynamic, the other one for static. Make sure that you enable both options here. This will make sure that every time you create a static lease in pfSense, it will actually register it as a DNS entry, as a record in the DNS server, which will automatically answer for the forward lookups and the reverse lookups for that entry. Let's go back to that Excel sheet, that spreadsheet you need to fill in with all your deployment parameters. If you go to the deployment parameter tab of that spreadsheet, you will see that here are actual DNS related stuff you need to enter, like a zone name. This is my DNS zone name, which is living on pfSense. You have to set up which DNS servers will the Cloud Builder appliance be using to deploy, resolve, and configure all your VCF components, entries on the VCF infrastructure, everything basically which relies on DNS, which DNS server should it query. So that DNS server should know all those host names beforehand, and they should correspond to those specific IP addresses. You can see here there are several host names for NSX. There is for vCenter, there is for the SDDC manager. Everything needs to be the same on your DNS server from a forward and a reverse lookup. So if I go back to my pfSense, you can see that in the unbound configuration, the DNS resolver configuration, I have created host overrides. These are just static DNS records you can create on your DNS server. In my case, I'm using pfSense, so I need to create host overrides for every IP address and every name I'm using for my VCF infrastructure. I have one setup for Cloud Builder. I have several set up for NSX, the SDDC Manager, and vCenter. They also have specific DNS records which corresponds to the IP addresses, which then will be configured using that Cloud Builder appliance. These are the DNS records you need to have in place before you start your VCF deployment. Make sure that they are built in correctly in that deployment spreadsheet. Make sure that they are also correctly set up in your DNS server so that forward lookups and reverse lookups give the same information and refer to the same IP addresses or the same hosts. That is a very important part for making the VCF installation go flawlessly. As always, thank you for watching. Don't forget to click on the like and subscribe button below. It will help out my channel a lot. If you have comments, leave it in the comment section below. I will try to get to them as soon as possible. For now, take care and see you soon. Bye.